Welcome to Winning with the Burns, a podcast for highly ambitious people who have a burning desire to learn what it takes to win at a high level. Hey guys, thanks for joining us again today. Nick, today I want to talk about execution. We're coming up on right now in the month of March. And, back in January, we talked about goals, goal setting, and, purpose and what we wanted to do. But what happens is once you set a goal, sometimes people lack that art of execution, of actually going out and executing. People say, well, I've got a goal. It's going to be life-changing. It's going to be life-changing. It doesn't change unless you go execute your plan to go and get your goal.
Yeah, I know for me personally, most of the time it's not a knowledge problem. It's a lack of execution. If you go to the gym consistently, you'll get the results. If you eat right consistently, you'll get the results. In our business, if you do certain activities consistently, you'll get the results. So, I think that's one of the biggest barriers that holds us back from living the life that we really want is, lack of execution.
Well, one of the biggest lies that we tell ourselves is, I have time.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do the activity today, but I'll make up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll do it tomorrow. My goal was this by summer. I'll make it up because I still have a couple months to get to summer.
Yeah.
We think we have time, but when you take action, you can't outrun compounding actions. You can't outrun them. So when you do take action, then it's like, I got to take a step. When you miss that step, you really take two steps back because you lose momentum.
Yeah.
Momentum's tough to get in anything, especially in business. We talk about all the time is momentum is like that wave that, you sit there and you're out there like you're a surfer and you're waiting on that wave, that right wave. And then all of a sudden you catch that perfect wave and you take off and you're riding. Eventually that momentum, that wave is going to crash. And then what you got to go do? You got to go chase another one.
Yeah.
Chase more momentum. So make the most of momentum because it's tough to get.
Yeah, I heard a guy say this a while back. He said, don't worry about losing momentum if you're constantly trying to catch it. If you're always in a thought process of trying to catch momentum, you're never going to have to worry about losing it. You were talking earlier about, preparing for this podcast. Time can be an enemy, but also time can be your friend. When I say time can be your enemy, it's if you're not doing the things to get the results that you want, the actionable things that you can do on a daily basis. It's not once a week type thing. It's not when you feel like doing it type thing. It's actionable that day. So whatever, we can relate it to our business, but whatever goals that you have, what actions need to take place to get those results and find out in detail what needs to do. So, because it does compound, because if you're doing that, time can be your friend. Time is on your side when you're doing what you're supposed to do to get the results that you want.
You said a magic word called action. We talk about people taking action, just taking action. But I think people miss the mark of taking action because they don't think the right way.
Yeah.
If you think a certain way, then you will act. And your actions and executing activity will lead to certain results, but it starts with thinking right. That's why we're so big on making sure that get your mind right.
Yeah, I had this written down to, when you said that, our actions are always congruent on how we really think. Whatever our underlying thinking is, our actions are going to, rear their ugly head. It's how you think first and create it into an action.
Yeah. Thinking will lead to actions, but sometimes those actions can be uncomfortable. Like if you're starting something new, especially if you're starting a business or you're starting fresh to the gym, or maybe you're getting back in the gym, it can become uncomfortable. But that's where the high achievers hit the mark, is when they learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable in that setting.
Yeah. The marketplace is only going to reward those that execute. They don't reward you for having the greatest ideas. I mean, how many ideas are out there right now that were never implemented? There's some unbelievable businesses that could have been started, but idea wasn't acted upon and executed, So, I think there's close to 300, don't quote me on this, I could Google it, but I think there's like 300 or 200. Let's just, for argument's sake, let's say there's 250 billionaires in the world right now. Billionaires with a B. they had the same amount of hours that Nick Burns does, that Jonathan Burns does, that you do in a day. So what separates them from somebody that isn't at that level? Yeah, there some luck involved. Yeah, right place, right time to an extent. But I don't really. That's just a small piece of it. It's really how those individuals think and are willing to go through it. Having empathy is so critical when you're dealing with somebody, but combine that with grit. Right? If somebody sees that you've got some empathy, that you care, and combine that with grit, man, you can do anything. Absolutely anything.
You said right place, right time, quote unquote, lucky. They put themselves in that position by taking action.
Yeah.
They were in the right place because they were taking action. I read a quote this morning that said, a vision without a plan is a pipe dream. Yeah. So it's hope. Hope is not a plan.
Yeah.
Hoping, and like I believe it will manifest. Like, you can only believe so much. You got to believe in yourself to go take that action. But it goes back to thinking.
Yeah.
Is keeping your mind prepared, saying, yes, this is my goal. This is my what I'm thinking I want to do. But at the end of the day, you got to go take action. You have to go execute.
Yeah.
Hoping and wishing and, praying is not a plan.
Yeah, hope isn't a strategy.
No.
It's part of it. You got to have hope for the dreams and future that you see. Anything that we see right now was seen in their mind first. This microphone, whoever invented the microphone, they had to see it first, right? So yeah, you got to have hope. You got to see it, right? But also you got to take the actions with it. And we're reading a book right now that was highly recommended by one of the executives in our company. It's called The 12-Week Year. It's just so thought-provoking. It talks about getting more done in 12 weeks than others do in 12 months. And I'm going to read this paragraph, JB, because this is kind of the gist of the book. It talks about discarding annualized thinking. So we have plans for the whole year. Companies do a budget for a whole year. But it talks about, at the heart of annualized thinking, there's an unspoken belief that there's plenty of time in the year to make things happen. You said that earlier, that we think we got plenty of time. In January, December looks such a long way off. But think about it. We begin the year with big goals, but by the end of January, we usually find ourselves slightly behind where we need to be, right? While we're not certainly pleased, we're not too worried either, because you got what? Time. Because we think to ourselves, I got plenty of time. I've got 11 more months to catch up, but at the end of March, we're still a bit behind. But again, we're not too worried. Why? Because we still think we have plenty of time to catch up. And this thought pattern prevails late into the year. We mistakenly believe that there's a lot of time left in the year and we act accordingly. We lack a sense of urgency, not realizing that every week is important, every day is important, every moment is important. Ultimately, effective execution happens daily and weekly. Another flawed premise with annualized thinking is the notion that sometime later in the year, we will experience significant improvement in results. Me and you've been there in business, right?
Yeah.
Man, it's going to happen. We believe it's going to happen, right? It's as if something magical will happen in late September or October that will result in a substantial increase. We can't produce a substantial increase this week. Why do we think we can do it for the entire year? That's profound, right? If we can't do it now, why do we think we're going to be able to do it later? The fact is, every week counts, every day counts, every moment counts. We need to be conscious of the reality that execution happens daily and weekly, not monthly or quarterly. Annualized thinking and planning more often than not leads to less than optimal performance. In order to perform at your best, you will need to get out of the annual mode and scrub your annualized thinking. Stop thinking in terms of a year. Instead, focus on shorter time frames. So what this book is talking about is collapsing your time frames down to 90 days, right? Every 90 days, because it shortens up where you need to be, and so it gives you a greater sense of urgency to do the actionable things that you need to do to get the ultimate results that you want. I highly recommend this, but we're probably, halfway through, but it's really powerful. Again, the biggest thing is creating a sense of urgency.
Sense of urgency made me think about, we used to go to all the Hawks games, the Atlanta Hawks home games, and how boring was the game 1, 2, halfway through the third quarter. It was kind of boring. all of a sudden you felt the energy in the whole Coliseum change when all of a sudden they started playing a little bit harder. It's because all of a sudden they knew that they were getting ready to run out of time. What I love about that book, it talks about is setting a due date. Back in the day, December was always one of our biggest months when it came to production. Why was that? A lot of people were trying to hit their goal by the end of the year. They had that sense of urgency to make sure they got it in by the end of the year. What I love about this book is you have that sense of urgency, but you have that due date within 12 weeks. It's like I only have 12 weeks. I don't have 52. So you look at it in 12-week increments. It's like I have a due date. There's a sense of urgency. It's like there's a fire lit under you instead of sitting around saying, oh, I got time. I can make up time.
Yeah.
I can make up time.
It's funny you say that about basketball. I noticed that with high school basketball about 5 or 6 years ago. You're starting to see it in some baseball games now where these kids, and our kids play travel baseball, and I'm specifically talking about AAU basketball. You play so many games in a day. I mean, these kids will play 4, 5, 6 games in a day. They lose, they got another game, right?
That's right.
In travel baseball, these tournaments guarantee these teams so many games. I mean, pool play matters to an extent, but if they, lose, they're still going to play on Sunday, right? It's creating a lack of sense of urgency to win now, to get it done now. It lulls you to sleep. And that's what the book even talks about. Having long-term, goal thinking, it lulls people to sleep. It gets rid of that. Hey, I got to get this done now, so I'm excited about us when we were walking over here, talking about last 30 days, how many people we've put into a licensing school. I mean, if we're double that in the next 30 days and then triple that in the next 30 days, you're aware of what you're doing, right? And it's that, again, it goes back to that action that you take to get the result that you want. So you can really look up 90 days from now, because nothing happens overnight, right? Nothing ever happens, the good or the bad. Somebody just don't do something crazy one night. It's things that have taken place over time, but nobody does anything great overnight either. It's the things that take place, the good, the bad, the indifferent, the struggle, the adversity that you go through that everybody sees the results of later on down the road. We live in such a microwave society right now. We want it and we want it now, right? I do. I'm not willing to put in time, and it's taken more longer than I thought it would take, right? But again, if I have my mindset right, if I have my thinking right, if I'm doing what I need to do, the results will flow.
That's it. You never take a day off. Don't take a rep off. Our high school coach always said, make every rep count.
Yeah.
Whether that was in the weight room in the summertime, whether that was during batting practice before, we even started playing games, to where it was batting practice before the state championship game. It's do not take a rep off. Because what will happen is when it's time to show up, you're prepared.
Yeah.
When it's time to show up, you don't have to scramble and say, well, I wish I would have done, right? The old saying is, I would rather endure the pain of discipline than live with the pain of regret.
Yeah. And it goes back to, it talks about every week counts, every day counts, but man, every moment counts. Our parents are, our dad's 70, our mom's about to be 7 this year. I know for me personally, I'm more intentional about making that phone call. I'm more intentional about, hey, let's go grab something to eat. Because, if we have them another 10 years, we're fortunate, right? Because you look back 10 years from now, it's 2023, 2013. I can remember that very vividly. 10 years flies by, so every moment, every decision we make matters.
Old man told me one time, he said, Jonathan, the older you get, days will go by like years, and years will go by like days.
Yeah.
And that's so true when you're in business. It seems like the days go by so long because you feel like you're working, in your business and not on your business.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between working on your business and actually working in your business. And it can drag you down. But then you wake up and you're like, oh my goodness, we just had a whole another year pass by. I wish I would have done this activity back in January. I wish I would have done that this summer. I wish I would have done that. So,
yeah. Go grab this book. It's really, really good. Like I said, halfway through with it, highly recommended by somebody that we respect. And this individual, I've seen their mindset. They're very passionate about our business. Not that they weren't before, but after reading this book, they've got even more excited about implementing things that we need to do. So the 12-week year by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington, really, really, really good book.